Good morning. I'm Ken Odeluga with the City Index morning briefing on Thursday, the 14th of July. It's about 10 o'clock. So we think the spotlight will remain on the United Kingdom on Thursday after a sparkling list of political stars lit up yesterday evening, bringing some intrigue and also some curiosity with the expedited appointment of the main cabinet members in new PM Theresa May's new government. Now, obviously, this has actually increased the stability or the perception of stability in the market for the United Kingdom, and that's had a sort of knock-on effect following the cheer from the fact that it appears now that there won't be an early UK election, and just the fact that what was expected to have been a protracted, drawn-out contest for the Conservative Party leadership was avoided. So we are risk on, and that's seen across the board. Theresa May will announce the other members of her cabinet today after the former Defence Secretary Philip Hammond was appointed to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, saying goodbye to the previous Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne. After Amber Rudd, the former Energy Secretary, was appointed Home Secretary, and after, probably most surprisingly, Boris Johnson was appointed as a Foreign Secretary. So, as you can see, the markets didn't seem to wobble a great deal from any of these appointments, but nevertheless the expedited nature of them was taken as a positive, and that's carried on across the board. So I'm just going to read, if you permit me to read off a number of kind of markets as they stood a few minutes before we started. The S&P 500 futures giving their usual signal for a positive start in the US with a 0.3% rise. And overnight, the Dow Jones closed another 0.1% higher. The S&P 500 marked off another record close as well with a marginal rise. Aussie dollar in the black, dollar CAD in the black, dollar Swiss in the black, Euro Swiss. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. So the dollar was in the black against all of these. The Aussie, the dollar, the Canadian dollar, the Swiss franc, and the euro was weak against the Swiss franc was weak against the euro as well. So these are all, the essential thing about these is that they're all assets which tend to fall or rise in terms of the risk appetite. So the Swiss franc tends to gain, pushing down the euro CHF pair when markets perceive kind of like heightened risk. Similarly with the yen is kind of like sliding further against the euro, against the pound, and against the dollar. Nikkei rose about 1% overnight, and the FTSE was up about 0.8% at last check, and the FTSE 250 also in focus because of its greater sterling sort of bias was also a little bit higher as well. So risk is on, but of course the main focus for the rest of the day is going to be the Bank of England decision. Now, this is a bit of a movable feast because there are many details and many expectations. But essentially, in the early part of the week, surprisingly enough, many of the polls done by the usual suspects, Bloomberg and Reuters, were suggesting that most economists did not expect the Bank of England to move. Fast forward to last night, after Mark Carney had made another one of his many high-profile appearances since the referendum, and after he again reiterated that he expects to actually increase monetary easing, the most up-to-date polls by both Bloomberg and Reuters were suggesting that most economists now expect an interest rate cut this afternoon at midday, with some sort of like marginal expectations that the Bank of England could go further. So at the very least, looking at a 25 basis point cut, I don't necessarily expect myself that the Bank of England will go much further than that in such a short space of time. But nevertheless, we should get some sort of hint or signal that the bank will even go further in August, perhaps with another 25 basis point cut, and maybe some additional measures like quantitative easing, the restart of that program, maybe funding for lending, and other tweaks to the economy. There are other data out today, probably not the main point. Among these, the most important is probably the US PPI release. And tomorrow we have another important day, but most of the action will take place while we're still asleep. The Chinese GDP update and also the Chinese industrial production update in the early morning hours. I'm Ken Odeluga. Thank you very much for watching.